To get some perspective on this, as if one Crispin weren't enough, we welcome Joe Crispin into the show as well. Joe, let me start with this. Most folks recall Penn State and the great run and the team that you were on in 2001, beating North Carolina in the second round, advancing to the Sweet 16. Take me back some 15 years. Hard to believe it's been that long. What are your lasting memories from that tourney run?
It was fun is the word. I think at the time, looking back on it, we probably didn't have enough fun with it because we were so focused on winning. But the Penn State community embraced it, and the run was special because we do talk about it often. And then when you look back on it, you realize the kind of guys you did it well, and we had a blast.
Joe, a lot of people don't realize that you actually got to go back and live in State College, something that a lot of people don't really appreciate what that community is all about. How special did the run become as a resident of State College post-career?
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't really think about it, but, it connected me with a lot of people through the years that, you see in passing in the community, and you're so focused on basketball and school and just getting through things as a college student that you move back to the community, you really get to know these people, you see them more consistently. It actually made it more special because even as a college student, I knew and you knew you're not just playing for yourself, you're not just playing for your teammate, you're playing for community, and that's what makes it special at any really of the Big Ten schools, but definitely at Penn State. And getting to go back there and being there for a few years, especially during the off seasons, made it even better.
One of the questions I always get, and it's a question I would probably say you should ask my brother because I think you played a bigger role in that team. Clearly, I'm giving myself a little credit here.
You think he played a bigger role on that team.
But you would say I didn't give you enough shots.
No, that's true. I mean, that was just me pointing out the obvious. But coaches asked me, what was it about that team that made you guys so good? And I think getting your perspective on that is not only a good answer for us as a team back then, but also for the current program at Penn State. What made us so good, in your opinion?
Well, it's funny. I've thought about that often, especially getting to coaching. You start looking at recruiting, and number one is character. I mean, we had a group of guys that we didn't really care who got the credit. We wanted to win. We were a group of competitors, and it wasn't about us. And then number two, there was a certain skill set there that I use as a grid. I mean, we usually had three guys on the floor at least who could shoot the three-point shot. We scored a good amount of points per game, and that was kind of our calling card. We were solid enough defensively, and we probably lost more games than we should have, looking back. But we were a pretty skilled team looking back. I mean, yourself could get hot any night. I could get hot any night. We had Titus Ivory, a good rebounder with Klein Hurd, and then guys who came off the bench and they played their role. And any coach will tell you, if you have a group of kids who can put the ball in the basket and who really don't care who gets the credit, there's a recipe for success.
Joe, we'll post that run, your pro career, and I'm going to do this quickly because the television portion of the show only lasts for 30 minutes. Otherwise, I'm going to spend the entire 30 minutes running it down. L.A. Lakers, you go to the ABA. Phoenix Suns to the CBA. You go to Greece, back to the ABA, to the USBL, to the ABA, to Poland, Italy, Spain, Turkey, 2 different trips to Italy, and you wrap things up in the Ukraine. What a long, strange trip it's been, but what has it done for you, not just as a basketball player, but as a person, to be able to experience all those stops and all those great places that you've been?
Well, I'll tell you, I would have never drawn it up that way. Naturally, coming out of college, going into college, I wanted to play in the NBA and the NBA only. But the way my career worked out from just a personal perspective, I was over there with my wife, my kids. I learned a ton just culturally, not just loving espresso and in Italy, but you just expand your horizons. And then from a basketball standpoint, and from a coaching standpoint, which is really what I want to do with the rest of my life, is I couldn't have come up with a better education. I mean, I experienced so many different ways to play, different coaches, different styles, some good, some horrendous, that I walked away from my career. And I walked away earlier than I was planning, especially because I thought, you know what, I'm kind of prepared the way I wanted to be prepared for coaching. So that's what made me move on.
Well, it's ironic because your playing experience is very similar to how I approach broadcasting. I get to see a lot of different programs, a lot of different coaches, different styles, and you almost come up with your own brand that you think would work. Certainly that's something you developed in your playing days, and you wrote a book about it. And the book clearly is about offense. I guess you're waiting for me to write the defensive book, which is not going to happen anymore. I'm not doing that. But talk a little bit about the book and what it was about, not only writing it from a player's perspective, but how it almost translates into what you do as a coach.
Well, the book will get published because of your not-so-gentle nudgings and putting it on here. But I actually wrote it before I started coaching because, one of the things I always was in a position overseas typically was I was often the communicator between coach and player. And, having experienced different ways to play, there were common denominators everywhere you went. No matter what country, no matter whether the coach wanted to play slower or faster, there were certain things that both players and coaches really needed to be successful. So, the plan was after, during the end of my career, and then I had a little 1.5-year hiatus before I started coaching, I just wrote them all down. And the way I looked at it, it was part of my education. But, overall, I tell people all the time, and I actually said something to a reporter today, that the way the NBA games moved and college teams are moving is the way the game has been played in Europe for a number of years. So, it's been a good jump.
The older and wiser of the brothers Crispin, Joe Crispin, kind enough to join us after being named to Penn State's all-time starting five. Joe, truly appreciate the time.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.